Today, it's all about the Corgi for Ken. Don't go away. Hello everyone and welcome to Fat Guy Productions. I am Paul, coming to you as always from beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada. My good friend Ken asked me for a favor, to knock out a Corgi Ghia for him. And so I'm gonna give it a try. After all, how hard can it be, right? It's just a simple Corgi Ghia, for Pete's sake. I should be able to knock this right out and nothing flat. Right. So my friend Ken sent me two Corgi Ghias, one for him and one for me, and asked if I could make one of them nice for him. So, no problem. Love Ken. He's a great guy, and I want to make a nice car for him. Well, you know, nothing's ever easy with Ken. He likes to send me a challenge, and this car is going to be no exception. Come to find out, these Corgi Ghias probably weren't the best thought out cars in the world. They end up having a lot of similar problems. The front and rear bumpers are broken on the cars he sent me. We thought maybe we could work something out and make some or switch some around. That's going to prove to be an issue. They both had identical cracks to the rear window. And these are castings where you really can't get parts for these. So I'm going to have to be really creative to make something here. But we're going to give it the old college try. So I didn't really realize that the two cars combined weren't going to work out, and I'll explain that in a second. But I do have two cars, so I'm going to go ahead and get started by taking these apart. They do have two rivets, front and back, and the rest is pretty easy. You know, it's standard diecast stuff, although it's a slightly bigger scale. But other than that, it really is just the same kind of thing. So I'll get the two cars apart, and that's when I'm really going to start to figure out all the issues I'm going to have. So almost all of these red suspension pieces are broken. So there's no suspension there. Not a problem. I can fix them with some piano wire, you know, but so that's a scratch. The bumpers are all broken. And here's the other problem. Unbeknownst to either one of us, these cars were made differently. So at some point, Corgi shifted the way they built these cars and the way the bumpers worked. So bumpers from one car won't necessarily fit on bumpers for another car, and vice versa. So now not only do I have broken bumpers, the ones that might have been savable won't work. So it's really just becoming a mess. So at this point, I have already gotten on eBay and ordered more Corgi Ghias. I shopped around looking for cars that had parts that I needed that were at a good price. So I got three more Corgi Ghias, and I'll get all the parts I need out of those things. Now, these cars are too big to fit in my normal vat of warm liquid goo, so I'm going to have to go with the alternate vat, and basically I'm just going to strip one car down, and I'll put it in there, cover it with a little bit of the warm liquid goo, and set it aside and let it do its thing. So I really wanted to get this done for Ken, but once I got the cars apart and realized I needed other cars to get other parts, because I don't know of anybody making reproduction parts for these, Once I got to that point, I realized I don't have a big rush anymore because I can't go forward without the parts. So I put them in the warm liquid goo and just let it sit for, I think it was 2 or 3 days, and pulled it out, gave it a good wash, and now I can take a look at the body. So I clearly picked the wrong body. After I got this one out of the stripper, I realized that it had some roof damage. So I thought I'd take the path of least resistance here. I don't know if that actually panned out or not, but I'm just going to take my little tiny hammer here and do a little tappa-tappa and try and get this thing back into shape. Honestly, what I should have done is I should have taken both cars apart right up front, but I did the one and now I'm doing the other one, and that would have saved me a little trouble in that I could have had all the parts laid out and gone through and picked out the best pieces, which is something I will do later when I get the other cars in, but it would have been helpful to do it right here. So if you're going to do something like this, my suggestion, get both cars completely apart. That way you can examine all the pieces and compare them to each other, and you can pick the best parts. So although I don't want to really go Spectraflame, I did kind of want to go with a metallic-y kind of a candy paint. So I'm planning to use my Candy 2.0 paints, and I'm thinking I'll go with the green. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to brush this down, make sure the body is nice, and then prime it, a little base coat, little Candy 2.0, and we'll see what we have. So here you can see this is exactly what I was talking about. I have the parts of the different cars and I've got them all laid out, and this way I can kind of filter through it and pick out whatever is going to work best for this build. Now, I'm looking at the suspension pieces and trying to figure those out. And what's going to happen is I'm going to end up with a good front piece and a good rear piece. So I'm not going to have to do any tricky repairs. All the other pieces are broken. I did, just for my own purposes, I did do a repair to one to see if I could do it, if I could pull it off and make it work. And it worked out pretty good. So it's just something I'm going to keep in the back of my head. So I did end up with one usable piece of glass, but it was still ratty. So the only answer there was to give it a good sanding using my sanding sponges, get it all nice and smooth. Then I polished it out with my trusty Flitz. Flitz works for everything. And once I had it the way I was happy with, into the gauzy it went. You know, this gauzy really is amazing stuff. And I found, because I've had a couple times where I've had problems, you can actually get it off the window if you really need to. So if it comes out, you know, with a clump in it or a bubble or something like that, you can actually get it off and start over again. So, you know, you're not dead in the water if something goes awry. Now, you see me here preparing to make a pretty critical mistake here. And what I was thinking is I would paint the doors and the trunk and the hood and the car all separately. Well, maybe with some paints that would work out fine. It's not going to work out so great here. I'll call it operator error. I just didn't get even coverage across all the different pieces, and it looked like hell. So we'll talk more about that in a minute. So all the parts got a a coating of Tamiya Fine Primer, and it revealed a few little anomalies, so with a sanding sponge I can just sand those away, smooth everything out, and I'm going to be dialed in and ready for my paint job. My paint job that I'm going to goof up. Oh well. It is what it is. So I am using a Candy 2.0 initially, and I'm going to put down a metallic base coat first. That way I can still use the primer and still get that shine that you want underneath the candy. So mixing up some metallic base coat, I'll put that on all over the car, and then we can lay down the color. So of all the cars I got, they were pretty much all blue or green, and I was going to go with the green, and I guess I kind of dodged a bullet here, because first of all, I didn't like it in the green after it was done. So once I realized that it was a terrible paint job, it kind of gave me an excuse to scrap it and get rid of it and try something different. But I am painting it green, and like I said, I'm painting the body and the doors and the hood and all that separate. And then I even go to the whole length of clear coating everything, and I hated it. Okay, so I couldn't stand it. And rather than fight with that, I just threw another casting into the stripper. You know, I got them all over the place now, so why not? So I just took one, put it back into the warm liquid goo, and let it do its thing, and we'll get back to that in a bit. So the casting is out of the goo. I have washed it, and I'm drying it off and just examining everything and making sure that this body is good to go. I'm liking what I'm seeing, so I can go ahead and forge ahead. So what was going on here is that the body pieces didn't want to stay on the body for painting. It was a real issue. So what I ended up doing is I took one of the worst interiors and I used that to help hold the car together. This allowed the doors to stay on, the hood, the trunk, all that, and then I could paint it. So I did that, and then I opened up the different parts, sprayed inside of there first. Then after that was dry, I closed it and started putting on the paint across all the parts at the same time. Now, like I said, I didn't really like the green. It wasn't working for me. And I found in my stash a Tamiya metallic blue. And I was looking at this thinking to myself, man, this looks a lot like the original color. So I decided that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go with the Tamiya acrylic. Man, you don't even understand. So let me tell you, sometimes this isn't easy. Okay, you know, sometimes you trip over your own tongue, and I apologize. But hey, okay. So anyhow, I didn't like the green. I'm going to repaint it with the Tamiya metallic blue. It should look great. So did I say it should look great? How about it does look great? And check this out. Because I'm using the Tamiya gloss paint, it came out with that realistic finish. So now I have decided also I'm not going to clear coat it because it looks so perfect. It looks probably like a new one right out of the box would have looked. So I'm really excited at this point. So now we're going to do some detailing, and we're going to use a couple different kinds of paint, but we're also going to really rely heavily on the Molotov liquid chrome. And I'm going to squirt some out into a little container, and I'm going to brush it all over the front and rear bumper, of which I now have a nice pair that fit on this particular body. Yes, I checked that first. So I have everything I need. I'm going to chrome those up. I'm going to put a little chrome on the car for the taillights and the door handles, and then we'll do a little detail work under the hood and on the interior. I'm telling you, the best way in the world to do taillights is put a little of this Molotow on the taillight, let it dry, and then dab some Tamiya clear red over it, and man, they really just pop. Works great. Now, on the original casting, they do paint the engine in the engine compartment, but they just kind of mask it off and paint it silver and call it a day. I'm going to try and put a little more effort into it and make it look a little more realistic. So I've picked out the best wheels and axles from the pile I have, and now I just need to take a little of my flitz and a Q-tip, and I'm going to polish up the hubcaps, and they're going to come out fantastic. They're going to look like brand new. Once I've got that done, I'll buff them out with a soft cloth and put them aside until I'm ready to put the car back together. So I gave the bumpers and stuff ample time to dry, but I still don't feel like I can be touching them yet. I don't think we're that far along, but I want to get the car back together. So what I'm doing is I'm using a pair of tweezers and holding the bumpers by the little pegs that go into the body, and that way I can position it, slide it back on the car, and never really ever have to touch the bumpers. So we'll slide the front one on, get it in place, and then we'll do the same to the back. So I really do think this thing is starting to shape up, and I'm pretty happy about it. And just on a side note, if I sound a little raspy or anything like that, I'm going to be honest with you. We're having a big fire up on the mountain right now, and it's really impacting me. I feel like I've been hanging out in a nightclub for the last 48 hours. My eyes are stingy and my throat is raspy. I've got a headache. I love the fires in the mountains. They always make it so wonderful here. Yeah, that part is not so beautiful. So, being delicate and trying to get this thing back together, it's way tougher than you'd think. Parts just keep falling off, okay? You know, the hood falls off or a door falls off. And what I've found is that the interior will really help you out because it'll help keep the doors in, okay? The hood and the trunk you can kind of manage if you're careful, but you really need to get the interior in and then kind of worm the door hinge into its place and then kind of push it together and it'll hold it in place. Okay, so everything's in there, everything's in its place, and all I have to do is very carefully put the bottom onto the car, snap it shut, and screw it down. So I really think it looks fantastic. A little dot of super glue where the little gemstone headlights go, pop them back into place, and I can call this project done. Well, there it is, Ken's Corgi. I think it came out great, and while yes, it was troublesome, it was also fun, as the cars that fight back are often the most enjoyable to restore. I like it, I hope Ken likes it, and I hope you all like it too. If you do, please give this video a thumbs up, click subscribe, and don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss one of my diecast restorations. As always, if you have any questions or comments, please just leave them down below. I'd love to hear from you guys. Well, that's going to do it for today. It's been more than enough of a challenge for me. Remember, where there is no struggle, there is no strength. Until next time, this is Paul from Fat Guy Productions saying, be good.